B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, Shiur Torah. Bruchim habayim. We're back here in the United States. And Baruch Hashem, back to doing some shiurim to get some chizuk. Baruch Hashem, tonight's shiur will be for the refuah shlema for Zev ben Chana Elisheva. And also for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rabbi Efraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Avi Mori David ben Nesriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, Vimesh ben Noach, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahides that continue to learn together with us the Holy Torah, Baruch Hashem. So we're back here in the States after a lengthy trip to Eretz HaKodesh, to the Holy Land, which Baruch Hashem was an extraordinary place, extraordinary people, and extraordinary times. The reality is that if it was based on personal desire, we'd still be there. There's simply so much that we have over there that you really don't want to miss even a second of not being part of it. But at the same token, we have to do the best that we possibly can to help all of our students, all of our fellow Jews here in the exile, here in the United States and other countries. And even though technically the vast majority of our efforts and lectures and all the different students that we have are all over the world because they're watching the shiurim online. Our dream has been already for several years to build a holy Jewish community that will have all of it that it possibly needs to live a Jewish life, whether it's a big yeshiva that will accept everyone that is simply willing to learn, regardless of whether their monetary situation is, or it's to have a shul where everybody comes to pray and not to socialize, or it's just simply having a community that has everything to offer. That's still a dream, still the things that we want to do, but the gates of heaven have yet to open. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we're hoping that happens very soon because there's not much more time that we could continue waiting for it since there's other work to be done. So we're back here to give it that one last shot. And we're hoping that we're going to get some very good news in these next couple of months, i.e. meaning that there's going to be some of you that are willing to become partners with us in a very big way that's going to help us fund this extraordinary endeavor. Of course, there's some other things that we're working on in Israel and that could potentially benefit us here in the States, but that is something we've been working on already for a couple of years, and there's really no way to know when it will actually happen, if it happens. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, once we have it, we'll have it, Be'ezrat Hashem, and everyone will know. And I'm sure that the wars that we've had until now will become small in comparison to the wars that are ahead. With that being said, the Baruch Hashem, the Kollel in Israel is continuing to grow. We just started a Bet Din officially in Eretz Yisrael. One of the things we're going to try to do is Be'ezrat Hashem bring that Bet Din also to operate in the States. That's one of the big things we're working on. But still, we'll need a lot of other things to happen for that to happen. Major thing is investors, spiritual investors, people that actually are able to help us do all of that. But needless to say, we're doing a lot of work in our Kollel in Eretz Yisrael, doing some remodeling, to the place. And Be'ezrat Hashem, that's going to be done within the next week or two. It's been going on already for several months. Be'ezrat Hashem. Anyone that wants to contribute to help us with our Kollel, with Talmidei Chachamim, then you can certainly do it on our website, be'ezrathashem.org. You could sponsor yourself an avrech once a month, once every several months, once a week. Depends on your desire, but this is certainly a good thing to invest in. You're investing in Torah, but you're also helping us do the kiruv that we're doing. We started a new newsletter that we're going to be giving out, an actual hard copy in Israel and most likely in the States. It's initially going to start off as just Hebrew, since it's being written by our Avachim, the Dayanim that are at our Kollel, and BeEzrat HaShem, over time, perhaps we'll add some other languages to it. So, first issue just came out last week. Baruch Hashem, we have some friends in California that received it, and Baruch Hashem, good feedback so far. So, with that, lastly, we have some new books that are, coming to the States as well as to Israel, that are both in Hebrew and English. And once that comes out, I'll let you guys know. But anyone that wants to help us with this whole huge thing, you could help us by donating on the website. Just the shipment to one of the locations was nearly $10,000. So the other location is going to be something similar. Point is that these things, although we're giving them out for free, they cost literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. So anything you can do would certainly appreciate it, especially before the end of the secular year. People that also have the benefit can get the benefit of the tax write-offs. This is the time to do it. Okay, enough talk about money and all the other things. Let's talk about the business at hand. What's the business at hand? Our Holy Torah is our instruction book, but at the same token, we have to apply the instruction book to the current times. And the current times, as we've talked about already for the last couple of months, is Israel is at war. And Israel is at war, and it seems like on one hand, we are winning the battles, but unfortunately, the war is still being fought. And I'm not just talking about the war between Israel and Hamas. I'm talking about the war against Israel, against even itself. And the war is still out there. We had obviously major injuries and death happen over the last couple of months. Just last night, the Hamas terrorist, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram, succeeded in killing 10 of our major soldiers and commanders within the Israeli force. This is something that unfortunately, if we don't change the way we're fighting, it's not going to be the last time. And what do I mean by that? As I told you guys last time, the problem with the war, and especially when you have all the media around it and everything, is that Israel is not really, politically speaking, is not able to fight the war the way it should fight, the way it would fight if it was any other country. If the same things that happened to Israel happened in America, the very next day you would see the Hamas lose anywhere between 100,000 to 200,000 people. The next day. If a bunch of terrorists came into America, killed a couple of thousand people, the very next day you'd see the American Air Force and a Navy bombed them in such a fashion where at the very least 50 to 100,000 people would die just on the first 24 hours. If the same thing that happened in Israel happened in Russia, the very next day, you would see that Hamas would simply lose probably close to half of its population, if not more. If the same thing happened in China as what happened in Israel, you'd see that the same day, not even the next day, there would no longer be Hamas. It would just turn into an island because they would bomb it so hard that it would literally break off of the continent. But Israel is unfortunately, even though we have a modern state Israel, it's really not the land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke of, where we have complete freedom and we have ruling and we have the life that we're waiting for when the Mashiach comes. That's a life that we can live as Jews. Israel is still under the control of the enemy, if you will. The enemy may very well be our allies. The enemy may very well be Jews, but it's the enemy nonetheless, meaning that Israel does not have the freedom to be Am Yisrael, where you have a political situation that's anti-Torah in Israel, and that political situation is in itself anti its own people, where many of the decisions that they're making are not exactly in favor of their own people, and but some of the things that they have are not really within their control, and one of them is how to fight this war. Meaning that even if they wanted to fight this war differently, pretty much the truth is that they can't, because from the minute that this war started, the American allies sent the warship and some support, financial support, weapons, but also somebody to supervise. Somebody to supervise how Israel actually fights the war, to the point where people from the inside have told me every single bomb has to get permission, has to get a signature by this American supervisor. We're not allowed to use everything we want, or even anything that we want. Everything has to have an address. Everything has to have a certain protocol. In so many words, you're fighting the enemy with one hand behind your back. And although it seems like, yeah, but we bombed a lot, we did a lot, the truth is that we did nothing in comparison to what can be done. And this can't really change much. At the same token, a lot of stuff's happening. Just found out today, someone told me today, I didn't read any some of this stuff. Some of this stuff was told me specifically by the people. Others were sent to me. But a lot of garbage is coming out, where a lot of different people in positions of power, whether it be politics or news, are being exposed as evil people, pedophiles, traitors, even treason, where some people actually knew about what was going to happen on October 7th and did not warn anybody. There's even a video of one daughter of a certain important person in politics. I believe he's a politician. She's actually at the party, the very same party that everyone always talks about, where unfortunately a lot of these young kids got murdered and worse. There's actually a video of this woman that's partying also, but she's the daughter of some official, and she's telling them, later on today there's going to be something horrible, but I can't tell you what's going to happen. Now, you don't need to be a genius to realize that there was something wrong. From the minute that the whole thing happened, you realize there was something terribly wrong. But a lot of stuff is coming out now. Soldiers are speaking out of how they were held back from fighting back. Some people, went to get their weapons, and they saw that the weapons are locked up in locks without, and the key and the person responsible for the key are pretty much missing in action. A lot of strange things. A lot of strange things are happening. And worse than everything is that some of these strange things are not only causing some turmoil among the nation, but also are making us not pay as much attention to the real problem at hand, which is how we're actually fighting this war. In the beginning, you had public support by America, but then you have Biden change his mind, saying that he's getting tired of this war and how the Israelis are fighting it, and he's in essence losing support. And if that's not bad enough, they're pressing Israel for a ceasefire, even though terrorism and attacks and murders by Hamas continue. In so many words, they want us to submit and raise our hands, and as if we lost the war, and just say, listen, whatever we did, whatever you did, finished. As I said, if this thing happened in any other country in the world, the war would be very, very different. Very, very different, especially the major countries that I mentioned before. They're trying to get Israel to stop. And one of the things that is giving Israel a little bit of, I guess, courage to continue nonetheless is unfortunately the disasters, meaning that the UN, Imach Shemam V'Zichram, has been against Israel's pretty much, as far as anyone could remember. And that didn't stop here. The UN is, in so many words, a terror organization in itself, a terror funding organization. And the UN has tried to stop Israel from continuing this fight, trying to force them to do a ceasefire. That put enough pressure on America to get Israel to do a ceasefire, because they figured that this is a humanitarian thing to do. And we realize that this humanitarian act has led to the death of no less than 10 Jews, Jewish soldiers, and even top soldiers and commanders in this war, because unlike what the Hamas terrorists and their supporters that are also terrorists said, that they need this, they need a ceasefire in order to have the ability to free more people, humanitarian approach, all of that stuff was a one big lie. Because what did they do with this extended period of ceasefire? They put a bunch of bombs and traps in the buildings that they knew that the Israelis are going to go into eventually, since they're not being permitted to blow up every building like they should. They're not being allowed to do what we've said is the greatest idea of how to fight this war from the beginning, which is pretty much just to turn it into a soccer field. And they're only being allowed to do specific targeting, which means that the rest of the attack has to be done with going from building to building. And since the Hamasniks, Imach Shemam, they won the political battle, and with their fake public outcry and lies, the Israelis are forced to go into these buildings. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, when you're told that you need this humanitarian ceasefire, and yet the enemy uses that ceasefire to have terror attacks inside Israel, killing multiple people, and on top of it, putting all types of traps and bombs inside the buildings, and that actually exploding in our face literally, where yesterday they walked into a building and 10 people died. And this is a tragedy no less than what happened on October 7th. So the lies of the enemy are critical to understand. And in fact, one of the things we're going to try to see here from our Torah is how important it is to know that the liar lies. And if you expect anything else from the liar, you are at fault for your own blood being spilled. Parashat Mikeitz starts off, ויהי מקץ 2 ימים, ופרעה חולם, והנה עומד על היאור. והנה מן היאור עולות 7 פרות יפות מראה ובריאות, בשר ותראינה באחו. והנה 7 פרות אחרות עולות אחריהן מן היאור, רעות מראה ודקות בשר, ותעמודנה אצל הפרות על שפת היאור. ותאכלנה הפרות רעות המראה ודקות הבשר את 7 הפרות יפות המראה והבריאות, ויקץ פרעה. וישן ויחלום שנית, והנה 7 שיבולים עולות בקנה אחד ובריאות וטובות. והנה 7 שיבולים דקות ושדופות, קדים צומחות אחריהן, ותבלענה השיבולים הדקות את 7 השיבולים הבריאות והמלאות, ויקץ פרעה והנה חלום. Here we have, it happened at the end of 2 years to the day. What is the end of the 2 years to the day? Yosef HaTzadik was in prison, in a dungeon, for 10 years. After, at the end of last week's parasha, where he interpreted the dream to the chamberlain of cupbearers and the chamberlain of the bakers, after the chamberlain of cupbearers saw that the interpretation was favorable and he was freed, Yosef asked him for a favor, if you will, to put a good in word for him to Pharoah to see if he could free him. And having faith in a person and not 100% in Hashem, at his level, Yosef got punished with an additional 2 years added to the divine decree of him being in prison. So instead of it being 10 years, it ended up being 12 years. So this parasha starts, it happened at the end of 2 years, meaning the end of the 2 extra years that were added to the sentence of Yosef. And this happened on that day where Pharoah was dreaming that, behold, he was standing over a river, when, behold, out of the river there emerged 7 cows of beautiful appearance and robust flesh. They were grazing in the marshland. Then, behold, 7 other cows emerged from after them out of the river, of ugly appearance and gaunt flesh. And they stood next to the cows on the bank of the river. The cows of ugly appearance and gaunt flesh ate the 7 cows of beautiful appearance and robust. And Pharoah woke up. He fell asleep and dreamt a second time. Why is it mentioning a second time? Why do we care for a second time? It's telling us that the first dream is connected to the second dream. And behold, the 7 ears of grain were sprouting on a single stalk, healthy and good. And behold, 7 ears, thin and scorched by the east wind, were growing after them. We see the similarities between the first dream and the second dream, where both are 7, both are beautiful and ugly. And then we see, then the thin ears swallowed up the 7 healthy and full ears. And Pharoah awoke, and behold, it had been a dream. We see the same thing happen again. The ugly, deathly looking ate the good and the healthy. And this was a dream, but this was a prophetic dream. And Pharoah went to his necromancers, his wizards, to ask him to interpret the dream. He immediately went to the mystical, the supernatural, the kochot atuma, the powers of impurity. But they could not interpret the dream. Then he went to his wise men, and his wise men could not interpret the dream either. And then the chamberlain of cupbearers throws a suggestion where he brings Yosef, as the Torah tells us that since the sentence is done, וישלח פרעה ויקרא את יוסף ויריצו מן הבור. ויגלח ויחלף שמלותיו ויבוא אל פרעה. The verse says in chapter 41, verse 14, so Pharoah sent and summoned Yosef, and they rushed him from the dungeon. He shaved and he changed his clothes, and he came to Pharoah. So here we see a little bit of a unusual behavior here in the words, where on one hand it says that Pharoah summoned Yosef to get him out of this dungeon. He wants somebody to interpret his dream. No one else can do it. And they hurry him up. They rush him. But then we see that this rushing wasn't really about getting him to interpret the dream right now, lest Pharoah forget. Because even though they rushed him out of the dungeon, they don't bring him to Pharoah, but rather they groom him, they give him a haircut, a shaving, they fit him to have brand new, beautiful clothes. If it's such a hurry, what do you care what Yosef looks like? He's a prisoner. Obviously, we see here that the Torah is telling us a different message, which is one of the most critical messages for a person to know, is that the divine decree that comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu laughs at our effort. if there is a decree for someone to succeed, no one in the world can cause them to fail, other than they themselves by doing something that would cause them to lose that blessing that they have. On the other hand, if there's a decree for someone to fail, to be sick, chas v'shalom, to die, or to suffer in any other way, no one in the world can change that decree other than the person themselves. This is why when people come to me and they ask me, listen, can you please give a blessing or pray for such and such person? Or can you have one of your dayanim, or even the mekubal that we're connected to, or a couple of them, Baruch Hashem, do a pidyon nefesh, or do one of the tikkunim or something for such and such person. The first thing that I ask is if these people are Torah observant. And if they're not, they have to become. If they're not willing to become Torah observant, if they're not willing to take on mitzvot and keep Shabbat and take on an important mitzvah, then we simply tell them that the prayers are not going to help. And even at times, many times, when people offer us money, say, listen, pray, do such and such for such and such person, and we'll donate this. And I tell them, don't donate anything. I don't want you to donate, not because we don't need the money, because we could certainly use it for 1.5 million different things that we have on the list, but rather because I don't want you to think that just because you paid money that it's going to work. It doesn't work that way. The money helps, but we need a mitzvah from that person to make it help. Oh, can I do a mitzvah for them? No. They themselves have to help themselves. You can't do a mitzvah for them. You can't do a mitzvah to help somebody that is, in essence, declaring themselves an enemy of God. They're not keeping Shabbat, they're not keeping family purity, they make fun of the Torah. No mitzvah in the world is going to help them, other than the mitzvah that they do. And so long as they deny the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu denies them the blessing. Now, here we see that the Torah is telling us clearly that if there is a divine decree that a person is supposed to suffer, that divine decree, on the same day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decrees it, he also decrees its end, when it will end. And no one in the world can get in the way of that. And therefore he teaches us in this pasuk, so Pharoah sent and summoned Yosef, and they rushed him from the dungeon, meaning that the moment that the decree of Yosef being in the prison was completed, the world was not allowed to continue functioning with him being in a dungeon, meaning they had to rush him out of this dungeon because the decree is over. Now, as far as meeting with Pharoah, that's secondary. That, you need to groom him, you need to take care of him, change his clothes, give him a haircut. That we're not in such a hurry of. The key is that the decree is over. This is very, very important for people, especially people that are either depressed or borderline depressed because they're going through a tough time. The financial issues, health issues, marriage issues, zivug issues, all types of things. You should know, so long as you yourself do not ruin your blessing, so long as you yourself do not do things that cause you to get more difficulties. If you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, you're serving Hashem, you pray to Him, you give tzedakah, you learn Torah, you follow the mitzvot, you do all the things that you're supposed to do, and you're not ruining the blessing by violating Shabbat, by wasting seed, by being immoral, by stealing, by gambling, all the same list that causes people to lose their blessing that we always talk about. As long as you're not ruining your blessing, you should know that dark cloud that's above you right now, that's causing you to lose money, that's causing you to be sick, that's causing you to have a difficulty, that dark cloud has an expiration date. And that expiration date will come. That expiration date will come. Don't lose hope. Don't jump off. Don't become depressed. Why? There's no point. Depression is not going to make that dark cloud go away. In fact, it may cause it to stay longer. Killing yourself is not going to make the dark cloud go away. It'll just make it permanent. The key is to know the dark cloud has an expiration date. You can do things to make it go away sooner, but all of them have to do with spirituality and not with you beautifying yourself or working out or taking vitamins or being more aggressive in your search for a new wife. None of that stuff is going to help you. The key is to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's going to make you realize that the difficulties have an expiration date. Now, here we see Yosef HaTzadik rushed out of the dungeon. This is a very big deal. One of the most powerful kings in the world is asking for this Jew to come help him interpret a dream, because none of the other experts that he have can help him. So you would think, if it's so important for you, Mr. Pharoah, to interpret this dream, and none of the other people you have can help you, and you're willing to, in essence, change the law and get this person out, this person that's viewed as an enemy. And I'll show you guys a proof that Yosef was an enemy, he wasn't a friend. You're changing the law to save your enemy so he can help you. At the very least, you would think you'd be honest with him. And then when Yosef comes, Yosef says to Pharoah, when Pharoah says that, I heard that you comprehend dreams and interpret them. Yosef immediately clarifies, no, it's not me, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Here Yosef shows why HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself calls him Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef the righteous. Because Yosef could have easily said, yeah, I'm the one that interprets. Pharoah said, you're the one that interprets the dreams. Yosef could have easily said, yeah, you're right. Or he could have just simply smiled and said nothing. Why not get credit? He needs it. He needs to stay out of prison. This is going to help him. But no, Yosef HaTzadik clarifies, shows the midat ha'emet, a trait of truth. And also sanctifies HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, which if people only knew how important it is to sanctify HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, they would literally cry that they haven't done it today. The Gemara in Masechet Chayigah says that if you went throughout the entire day and you didn't sanctify HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, it was better off for you not to be born. Why? The Gemara in Masechet Yevamot says the Torah itself is as important as it could possibly be. So much so that when someone thinks that they can change one letter in the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Shlomo HaMelech was very righteous. And he brought thousands of sacrifices to Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, let Shlomo and 1,000 like him, go as a sacrifice, and not a single letter in the Torah be changed. But yet the very same Gemara Masechet Yevamot says, let a single letter of Torah be erased for the sake of honoring HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name one time. If a person truly understood what I just said, they'd literally cry that they didn't try extra today to sanctify HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name by publicizing his Torah, by sharing Hashem's Torah. People simply don't know what prizes they have in their hands that they could simply collect for very little effort. Yosef HaTzadik sanctifies HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name and is recognized for it for eternity. As the Pasuk says, it is God who will respond with Paro's welfare. That's what Yosef says. Now, back to our business at hand. Paro has the man that he wants in front of him, the dream interpreter, the righteous dream interpreter, Yosef. But then, we see something unusual. The way that Paro is telling about his dream is not the same way as what was written just one paragraph ago. He's not giving the same details. In fact, when Yosef HaTzadik starts to interpret the dream of Paro, Paro is so flabbergasted that the Midrash Tanchuma says, Paro asked Yosef if he was inside his dream, if he was inside his head. How can you possibly know all those details? No one could know the dream. What does it mean? And Paro lied. He didn't tell Yosef his real dream. He expected to lie and yet get a good result. He wanted to interpret, he wanted to tell whatever version of the dream he wanted, and he wanted Yosef to tell him whatever he felt. And therefore he lied to Yosef about the dream. But when he said, oh listen, I went there, Yosef says, no, you weren't there, you were somewhere else. Or there were this many cows, Yosef said, no, there's not that many cows, it was a different amount of cows. Yosef knew details about the dream that Paro never told him. So much so that the Midrash Tanchuma says that Paro was so shocked, he asked Yosef if he was inside his head during this time that he had the dream. Now, what do we really learn from here? Aside from the fact that Yosef was obviously given prophecy to know all this stuff, that the root of Ishmael, the root of the enemy, puts them in a position where lies become standard. So much so that they themselves cannot tell the difference between truth and lies. They live a lie. Instead of enabling Yosef to help him by telling him the full details and, deal with the details, Paro lies. The same thing like Hamas said, we need ceasefire. But they can't help themselves and lie about the reasons for the ceasefire. The only reason why they wanted a ceasefire is so they could kill more Jews without the Jews defending themselves. The hatred is not something that started now. The hatred between Ishmael and Yaakov is something that started already from the beginning. Even though the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says Esav soneh et Yaakov, that it's an halacha that Esav hates Yaakov, it's also truth that Ishmael is the enemy of Yaakov as well. And the first one to discover this was Sarah Imenu. When she saw Ishmael, and she saw, the pasuk says, the verse says that she saw Ishmael metzochek. What's metzochek? Being a scorner, making a joke of things. What? So what if he's making a joke? No. He was making a joke of the value of human life, say the sages. He was putting her son, Yitzchak, in all types of positions where it was much more likely for him to die than to actually enjoy the game. And when she saw that he's putting Yitzchak at life risk, and literally he's trying to kill him, but not outright. He's trying to kill him and making it look like an accident. He's shooting the arrow, pretending he's going to shoot on a tree, and it nearly hits Yitzchak. And Yitzchak is shocked, goes, no, I didn't shoot. No, I didn't mean to. I tried. The wind carried the arrow close to you. He was trying to kill Yitzchak, but not in such a obvious way. When Sarai Imenu saw this, she literally had the prophecy where she saw Ishmael and his descendants and how they're all going to be this type of nature. This lying, deceiving nature that simply rules their life. Pharoah is another example of it. Pharoah is looking for help, but he can't help himself but lie. Later on, we see another example of it, where after Pharoah decides to make Yosef a viceroy, the Torah says, "Vayikra Paro Shem Yosef tzafnat panecha, v'yiten lo et Osnat bat Potifera, Kohen on leisha." Paro gives Yosef a new name as he makes him the viceroy. He calls him Tzafnat Panecha, and he gave him a wife named Asnat, the daughter of Potifera. Now, the truth is, this worked out perfectly. This is all divine hand. Where Osnat was really the daughter of Dinah, after she got raped by Hamor, by Shechem ben Hamor. She was sent away and adopted by Potiphar. So she was really the only Jew there. So how could it be out of millions of people in Egypt? Millions of people are in Egypt, and Paro happens to choose her, the only Jew, to marry the only Jew. And it says, he gave it to her. It seems like it's a gift. Not a gift. The truth is, the Egyptians were disgusted by Yosef. How do we know? Later on in the parasha, when Yosef's brothers come and they're sitting down with Yosef and eating with him, the verse says in chapter 43, verse 32, they served him separately and them separately, meaning they served the servants, the Egyptian servants served Yosef separately and the tribes separately. And the Egyptians who ate with him also separately, meaning the Egyptian servants of Yosef also ate separately. They didn't eat with Yosef and they didn't eat with the guests, which were the 12 tribes, his brothers. Why? As the Pasuk says, for the Egyptians could not bear to eat food with the Hebrews, it being loathsome to the Egyptians. In the eyes of the Egyptians, in the eyes of Ishmael, the Jews are disgusting. Even though, what do you mean? Their boss, Yosef. Yeah, he's our boss. We'll follow what he says because or else he'll kill us. But that doesn't mean we like him. They find him disgusting. His brothers, his guests, disgusting. Osnat, bat Potifera the tzadikah, Paro gave her to Yosef, not because he was doing him a kindness, but because she was the only one that was not Egyptian. She was not like him. So he gave her. Meaning even the gifts were not gifts out of kindness. Now, although again, like I said, this was the divine hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu made that happen. But make sure you know that the enemy doesn't give free gifts. The enemy does not give free gifts. The Torah tells us that there's a certain way that we have to deal with the enemies. David HaMelech, in the book of Psalms, chapter 120, says, Hashem, rescue my soul from lying lips, from a deceitful tongue. Here David HaMelech says he's not worried about arrows, he's not worried about rockets, he's not worried about the enemy's horses, he's worried about the lies. The lies that make the enemy look good. The lies that make the enemy win the public war. Save me from that. Why? Because without winning this war against the lies, it'll never be over. Even if you won and you killed some people, that's only winning a battle. The war can only be won once you know how to deal with lies. And David HaMelech says, even when he wants peace with them, he wants to ceasefire with them, he doesn't want to fight. In the same Tehillim number 120, we go from verse 2 to verse 7. David HaMelech says, I am peace, but when I speak, they are for war. Meaning that I want peace, but they don't want peace, even when they say they want. Why? Because they're liars. They're liars. That's who they are. That is their makeup. Now, I've told you guys several times that it's not possible for anyone to be a Muslim and at the same time a friend of the Jews. You could be friendly, you could be with a temporary peace, but it cannot be real peace. Why? Because if you are a Muslim, you follow the Quran. And the Quran is a document to teach hatred of the Jews, especially more than anything else, and to tell the world that this Quran is what they call the Nukba. The Nukba meaning it's the rule, it's the law of the world. And everyone else has to follow it in order to get the permission to live. Now, most people are not aware of this because they hear statements from the Muslims that say, no, what are you talking about? We value life. As our Quran says, that whoever takes a life, it will be as if they killed all of humanity. And whoever saves a life, it's as if they saved all of humanity. So you see, our Quran says we value life. You know what the problem is? They're never going to mention the source of that sentence. Do you know why? Because if they mention the actual source of that, someone will eventually look it up. And when that someone will look it up, they will find out that what they said is not exactly 100% true or even 50% true. And the good news is, somebody did look it up. In the Quran, in Surah number 5, chapter 32, comes this verse that everyone mentions in the name of the Quran being a peaceful document. And it says, that is why we ordained the children of Israel that whoever takes a life, unless as a punishment for murder or mischief in the land, it will be as if they killed all of humanity. And whoever saves a life, it will be as if they saved all of humanity. Here we see that the sentence is a world of difference from what they said. First of all, this is not the rule for the Muslims. This is what they say they rule and ordain the children of Israel. Meaning the Jews are obligated to believe this, not the Muslims. The Muslims don't believe that one life is, if you take one life, it's as if you destroyed the world. They have no value for life. They sanctify death. As the Quran itself says, we ordain for the children of Israel that whoever takes a life, it will be as if they killed all of humanity. Furthermore, where does this sentence come from? It comes from the Talmud. It comes from the Gemara. Meaning, this is one of the teachings of our sages. This is not a Muslim teaching. This is a teaching of our Jewish sages that say that the value of one Jewish life is as if it's the entire world. And little Muhammad over here is making it, is plagiarizing it and saying it, oh no, we're the ones that brought it, for the Jews to follow that. Now, since when do the Muslims care about the Jewish sages? Well, let's see. In chapter 5, verse 32, we saw that the Muslims believe that the Torah, the Muslims believe in the teachings of the Talmud and the sages, but for the Jews to follow it. And then the next verse, if someone just so happened to actually read what it says in the Quran, says, indeed, the penalty for those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and spread the mischief in the land is death, crucifixion, cutting off their hands and feet on opposite sides, or exile from the land. This penalty is a disgrace for them in this world, and they will suffer a tremendous punishment in the hereafter. The Quran in the next verse tells us how they are supposed to follow the law. Meaning, the Jews, not allowed to kill. Why? The value of one life is as if you killed the whole world. That's your book. That's what you have to follow. Why? Because the Torah is holy. The Quran says the Torah is holy. They follow the Torah, they say. But the rule for the Muslim, anyone that goes against us, then they get the worst possible torture and death you can possibly imagine, with details. Death, crucifixion, cutting off their hands and feet on both opposite sides, exile from the land, disgracing them in this world and the next. In so many words, a free reign to torture people. Pretty much what they did on October 7th is written in the Quran. Now, if a person continues to read, they'll see that the Quran is full of these vile messages, to the point where if you go to verse number 43 and 44 in Surah 5, you'll see that the Quran says, but why do they, it's talking about the Jews, but why do they come to you for judgment when they already have the Torah containing Allah's judgment? Here, the Quran is saying to the Muslim, why would they even come to you? They already have the Torah that contains God's message. So you would think, wow, this, they must like us. Go to verse number 44. And you see how they distort reality. Indeed, we revealed the Torah. This is the Muslims speaking. This is the Quran. We revealed the Torah containing guidance and light, by which the prophets who submitted themselves to Allah made judgment for the Jews. so too did the rabbis and the scholars judge according to Allah's book, with which they were entrusted and of which they were made keepers. So do not fear the people, fear me, nor trade my revelations for a fleeting gain. And those who do not judge by what Allah has revealed are truly the disbelievers. Here the Quran is in essence telling the world that first of all the Torah is the word of God. Not that we need Muhammad to tell us the word of God, but here it's showing us how much of a hypocrite they are. On one hand, they're saying that the Torah is the word of God, which the Jews, the rabbis, the scholars, they judge according to it. They were entrusted as the keepers of it. Don't be afraid of anything but the same God that gave them the Torah. Anyone that goes against it, anyone that goes against the Torah is considered a kofel, a disbeliever. But yet, if you continue reading on, you realize, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. How did you reveal the Torah to the Jews when the Jews came 2,000 years before you even existed? We started as a nation at Mount Sinai 3,334 years ago. Islam started 1,400 years ago. There's about a 2,000 year difference there for those who don't know how to do math. How did you reveal the Torah to us if we preceded you? Furthermore, when you went to the Jewish sages, why did you slaughter them in the end? Because they said that Muhammad is an ignoramus who doesn't know anything, and they don't want to follow his guidance and his ideas. And that's why later on, the Quran turns from saying that the Torah is real, the Torah is a word of God, into saying that the ultimate salvation of the Muslim will only come by murdering all of the Jews. See here, Rabotai, you have a book, a religion, an ideology that billions of people follow blindly. Some follow it religiously, some follow it blindlessly without even knowing the religion, by just simply supporting Palestine, supporting Hamas, supporting the enemy. Why? Because they look poor, they look miserable, they look abused, and it looks like the Jews are abusing them, when the reality is they're doing the opposite. They're the abusers of their own people. They're the tormentors of the Jews. And in fact, they're the tormentors of the entire world. Not because I said it, not because I believe it, but because that's what their book, that's what their religion, that's what their ideology teaches. Well, on one hand, they tell you, yeah, the Torah is the word of God. But the very next one tells you things that contradict that. And then you go further, and you say, it says not only things that contradict it, things that are antithetical to it. Well, on one hand you said the Jews are the keepers of the book of God, but later on you say that the Jews have to be destroyed in order for your salvation to come. We see that this double talk, or talking out of both sides of the mouth, outright lies, is very much the nature of Ishmael. Ishmael, metzochek, as the Torah says, scorns and makes fun of everything that's of value. Paro follows suit even asking help from the Jew, from Yosef, but still lying to him, never accepting him, giving him a good job, but so long as it's profitable. The moment they got the profit, as we will see in the beginning of the book of Exodus, and a Pharoah came up who did not know who Yosef is. He forgot. He forgot the same person, that Jew, that saved Egypt from complete annihilation, from hunger, famine, and in fact, built Egypt, built the pyramids, built the statues, built the monuments, built the economy, built the empire to be the most wealthy empire on planet Earth, such as the world has never seen before or after. After Yosef did that, as the book of Exodus begins telling us, they forgot Yosef. This convenient type of changing the truth to fit whatever you like is not a new thing. And it's not something that is going to stop now. It's happened endless amount of times. Everywhere the Jews went, they brought blessings to those places. They went to Egypt. Egypt became the most powerful nation in the world. They went to Babylon. Babylon became the most powerful nation in the world. They went to Spain, Turkey, Germany, Russia, America, each one of those places, as well as Rome and Greece. Before they kicked out the Jews, before they tormented the Jews, before they tortured the Jews, they used the Jews. They built empires due to the Jews. They didn't care about anti-Semitism. No one cared about anti-Semitism in America when Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers, spearheaded by Jews, were funding the war for America to win. No one cared about anti-Semitism when the Rothschild family was helping its friends in Europe win the war against the enemy. No one cared about anti-Semitism when companies like Gap revolutionized retail clothing, again spearheaded by Jews. No one cared about anti-Semitism when the Hyatt hotels became a leading brand of hotels around the world, again spearheaded by Jews. No one cared about anti-Semitism when Hollywood was born due to Jews. Do you know when people started caring about anti-Semitism? After it was built, after it was successful, to the point where others were benefiting just as much. Others that were not Jewish. Others that were not exactly even fans of Jews. They were able to enter the Hollywood business, the hotel business, the retail clothing business, the investment banking business. The banking business, to the point where they said, listen, we need to get rid of this competition. But defeating them in business is not possible. How do we defeat them? Destroy who they are. Just like all of the enemies of the Jews have done before. It has nothing to do with business. It has to do with Ishmael and Esau hate Yaakov. Why? Because that's what they learn. That's what they believe. That's what they think is the truth. Now, the good news here, Rabotai Karim, is that this too is obviously the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu protects us from assimilation by using anti-Semitism. He uses anti-Semitism in order for us to be reminded that we are Jews, even if we are not observing the Torah and the Mitzvot. And ultimately, we will suffer only because we are Jews, and not because of our business dealings or misdealings. Now, the reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu allows the suffering to happen is because the Jew forgot to be a Jew. And he needed the Goy to remind him. So those of you that are considering staying secular Jews, you should know that if you live long enough to see the wrath of God in this world, you'll suffer because of the very same thing you're running away from. The Goy will remind you you're a Jew. Just like we were reminded in Nazi Germany, in Russia, in Spain, all over the Middle East, in Iraq, Syria, Iran, and throughout all of history. On the other hand, if you follow the Torah, unlike any other time in the last several thousand years, since we are in a generation of Mashiach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says through the prophets, Zechariah, Jeremiah, and the others, to talk about the end of days, that the last salvation will not be like the previous ones. Because in the last salvation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will protect those that are committed to God and His Torah. Meaning that right now, it pays to be a Jew not just because of your eternity after this world ends, but even while you are in this world, you'll get protection. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14, Adonai lachem lachem v'atem techarishun. So the very same thing that you're running away from, that Shabbat that you're violating, the family purity that you are desecrating, the business that is not following the laws of a Torah, and all of the other things that you're disregarding because you don't feel like you want to be a Jew, or you don't feel like a Jew needs to be a Jew, you should know that if you actually do become an observant Jew, you're getting yourself the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free ticket in this world and the next. For those of you that are considering converting to Judaism, you should know this is part of the war that you are joining. Meaning, the minute you become a Jew, if you're not righteous enough, you'll live your life as a victim. If you're not committed enough, you'll be miserable, much more than you can possibly imagine. Why? Because you're joining what seems to be the minority, the inferior, but in reality, you're joining the people of the book, the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where if you're joining for the right reasons, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will protect you. So it all depends what is really the reason of why you're converting and what you're planning to do after you convert. For those others that are Noahides, that are looking to follow the Torah, you should know that one of your major purposes in life, aside from following the Torah according to the Noahide law that's in the Torah, is to help the Jews get closer to God, to do tshuva. This is more valuable than anything else you could do on your own. You investing into helping other Jews become closer to Hashem is favored in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the Mishnah tells us. In Masechet Shkalim, in chapter 1, Halacha number 5, or Mishnah number 5, where it talks about who is allowed to give the machatzit shekel, who's not. There were people that were idol worshippers, and also fake converts called the Kuthans, or Kuthian. They were not allowed to give the shkalim. They were not allowed to contribute to the Bet HaMikdash. Why? Those are mitzvot specifically for Am Yisrael. But if they wanted to give to help the Jewish community, then we accept from their hands those offerings. We accept the vow offerings and the gift offerings from the hands, because the Torah includes even idolaters in these kinds of offerings. And even the Kuthians, the fake converts, caused Am Yisrael a lot of trouble. Even they were allowed to bring those offerings. Why? Because to help Am Yisrael is everyone's obligation. But don't confuse helping Am Yisrael with doing what Am Yisrael is supposed to do. Am Yisrael is supposed to keep Shabbat. If you're a non-Jew, you're not supposed to keep Shabbat. You keeping Shabbat is a sin. It's not a mitzvah. But if you help a Jew keep Shabbat, that's a big mitzvah. That's a big, big plus on your spiritual account. Last but not least, for those enemies of God, for those that choose to be enemies, for those that are following the Quran and all of the other ideologies that go against the Torah and the Jewish people, you should know, Shlomo HaMelech spoke about you. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 30, where he says, the grave has 2 daughters that say, give me, give me. There are 3 that are never sated. Indeed, 4 that never say enough. The grave, the sealed womb, the land of unsated with water, and the fire which never says enough. Here Shlomo HaMelech is telling us the ultimate creation that will never be satiated is not only the grave as people continue to die, or a land that doesn't have water, but ultimately it's the fire that never goes out. What's the fire that never goes out? It's the fire of Gehenom. The fire of Gehenom never goes out because its ultimate desire of all of those destructive angels of Gehenom is to destroy. Just like you enjoy eating, drinking, breathing, procreating, those destructive angels that Hashem created enjoy destroying the enemies of God. And the Gemara in Masechet Eruvin, the very same Masechet that even the Quran says is the word of God. They call the Talmud teachings that they quote in the Quran the words of God. So this very same Talmud, Tractate Eruvin, page 19a, tells us in the name of the sages, Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Elazar, and also Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and also Resh Lakish, that the characteristics of God are different than the characteristics of flesh and blood. How so? Says Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Elazar, come and see how unlike the characteristics of the Holy One, blessed is He, is the characteristic of a person made of flesh and blood, where the characteristics of flesh and blood is such that when a person is sentenced to death by the crown, they must put a piece of wood in his mouth to prevent him from cursing the king. On the other hand, the characteristic of the Holy One, blessed is He, is such that when a person is sentenced to death for a crime against God, the omnipresent, he is silent and does not express resentment against God for his punishment. As the verse says in the book of Psalms, chapter 65, verse 2, to you silence is praise. And not only that, but he praises God. As it says, praise, in the verse praise, in the verse in the same one we just mentioned. And not only that, but to him, the dying person, it seems that it is as if he is offering a sacrifice. As it says in the end of the verse, and unto you, God, shall the vow be fulfilled. He regards his acceptance of God's judgment as a fulfillment of sacrificial vow. Here the Gemara is telling us that all of the enemies will ultimately accept the judgment of God, which is to send them to Gehenom and never come out. All of the enemies of Am Yisrael will go to a place and they won't have anything nasty to say to God. They won't have complaints. Why? Because they will see Damam biyadam, that their blood is in their hands. They themselves caused themselves to hate, to kill, to lie. They themselves destroyed lives, including their own. So now for those that are in a position of power of some kind, or those that are thinking about how could we possibly win this war, it's simple. Follow the Torah. The Torah says the enemy is a liar. And if he's a liar, he will lie. The moment you forget that, you're putting yourself and others at risk. Once you realize that the enemy is a liar, you fight differently. You fight with complete disregard for all of the noise around you, whether it's noise from the media or allies or enemies, because you know that it doesn't matter what the enemy says, because everything that comes out of their mouth is simply a lie, because their ultimate goal is to destroy you, and that won't change just because you stop shooting at them. And it certainly won't change if you continue shooting at them until you eventually destroy them. Now, ultimately, this war is not going to be won by mankind. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can win this war. When? That will depend on mankind. When we do tshuva, when we repent, when we follow the Torah, we bring the salvation closer because we earn a blessing to come back to us. BeEzrat HaShem, we will all earn the blessing. Whether you're a Jew that's religious, or a Jew that wasn't religious before this lecture, whether you're a Gentile that's following the Torah as a Noahide, or wants to, or you're a Gentile that wasn't following it and in fact was even an enemy and now wants to be a friend. The ultimate salvation to anyone living in this world is to follow the Torah, the Jewish version of the Torah, and not the distorted teachings of the Quran that misquote the Torah. BeEzrat HaShem, we all succeed in following this holy Torah and truly bringing salvation to all of us that are actually doing it. And if that happens to be a minority or a majority of the world, that's in our hands. With that being said, I'll see if there's some questions, and BeEzrat HaShem, we'll go from there. Question. A well-known internet rabbi said that a person could get the wrong soul back in him in the morning. He says that it happens a lot. Is this true? It doesn't necessarily happen a lot, like as if there's mistakes in heaven. He should speak more clearly if this is all he said. It's hard for me to believe that that's all he said. There's probably more context to what he's saying. But souls can change based on behavior, meaning the Arizal teaches, for example, if a person gets angry and expresses his anger in an aggressive manner by breaking things and doing things of that nature, if they had a a good soul in there that were doing good, and then they acted in such a horrible way, there's a soul of a wicked person that enters them. So things like that can happen, and it can happen often. But it's not because of, some confusion in heaven where the soul doesn't know its address. It's due to the actions of the person himself, not due to some mismanagement of souls. Let's see. Okay, a lot of comments, but wait. Is a Noahide allowed to read Targum Onkelos? Yeah, Targum Onkelos just tells you what the verse says. So it's not a problem. It's not like the Talmud that teaches you specific details of the Mitzvot of Am Yisrael. Let's see what else is here. What will happen to the filthy anti-Semites that are raging on Twitter like Lucas Gage in the end? All of the enemies of Am Yisrael and the Torah should go look at the book of Zechariah, chapter 14, where it talks about the war of Gog and Magog, where 2/3 of the world are destroyed. They certainly will be part of those 2/3 that get destroyed because they're the enemies of God. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 38, says the same thing. Just more details. And if someone wants to know what happens after a person dies, they can watch my film called Gehenom. And there it brings 176 different Torah sources from different parts of the Torah, from the Tanakh, from the Talmud, from the Zohar, from Shulchan Aruch, from Chassidut, from Musar books, from all aspects of the Torah, that discusses what happens to wicked people after they die. Lama ochlim sufganiyot beChanukah. The reason why we eat sufganiyot and other oily food is as a commemoration of the miracle that happened of the oil that was supposed to last, to light the menorah for 1 day, but ended up lasting for 8 days. So as a commemoration of the oil that miraculously lasted more than normal, more than natural, we eat oily products. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else here? There we go. See. Is there any halachic permission not to wear Tefillin Shel Rosh for those who do hair transplants for several days for their hair to recover? It'll cause infection apparently if they do. No, there's no permission to not wear Tefillin Shel Rosh. What you can do is, if you know that the Shulchan Aruch says that you must have Yeshuva Dat and you have to be clean when you wear Tefillin, So there are certain people that have all types of health issues that their cleanliness is very short-lived, or their physical shape does not allow them to put on tefillin for the entire prayer. So what do is they put on the tefillin, they say the Shema Yisrael with a couple of paragraphs if they can, and then they take off the tefillin, and for the rest of the prayer they don't have to wear tefillin. Some that are very unhealthy can only just put on the tefillin and just say literally the first verse of Shema Yisrael, and then they take off they don't say the other paragraphs with tefillin on, they take them off, and then they say the rest of it after they take it off. So a person that could potentially have a infection from something like that, then if it's only for a few days, they could just wear the tefillin for a shorter period of time and not have to wear it the whole day. But to not wear the tefillin at all, no, there's no permission to do such a thing, because tefillin are an obligation. Hair transplant is simply a desire of a person. It's not necessary for them to live. Question, please, Rabbi. How does it work that at one case there is a person born far away from Torah and Hashem, could be all his life living a lie, or even an evil person? He will never have a chance to see truth and will go to Gehinnom for it. But a different person is born near Hashem and Torah and has opportunity to get closer to Hashem. Seems that one has opportunity and the other one doesn't. Okay? Good question. This all has to do with a misunderstanding of what life is. Meaning, when a person thinks of life, they think of their own life. They think that their life is, in essence, unique and is the first time that they're around. What they don't realize is that, as the Torah tells us in multiple places, in the Gemara, and of course the Arizal extrapolates upon the teachings of the Gemara and the Zohar, that there is a reincarnations, and there is scientific evidence that reincarnation is very much a reality, meaning that every single one of us has been here before. None of us are here for the first time. All of us have been here before. The Jewish people, we were at Mount Sinai, and in fact, even some of the Gentiles today were at Mount Sinai as Jews, but they got punished to reincarnate as non-Jews because they didn't observe the Torah, and now their tikkun is to convert to being Jewish. Point being is that if a person is born in this world, they're born into a specific situation that they themselves chose according to the judgment that they had due to their previous life's actions. Meaning, if they lived a life where they were promiscuous with someone that's forbidden to them, it could very well be that they could either get a sentence to go to Gehenna or Kafakela for a endless amount of time or a very extended period of time, or reincarnate as the opposite gender, or reincarnate as someone that has problems getting married, or someone that has all types of physical deformities that make intercourse impossible. In so many words, something related to that action. In fact, if there is intermarriage between a Jew and a Gentile, one of the tikkunim, the Arizal writes in Shar Yulim, I believe it's in chapter 21, but he talks about how a person will have to reincarnate as a dog. This is also in the Gemara Masechet Avodah Zarah, and several other places talks about how a Jew that is intimate with a non-Jew has to reincarnate as a dog as part of their tikkun. It's not their only tikkun. It's not like they are promiscuous with endless amount of people they're forbidden to. They go up there and they say, okay, just go back as a dog, live for 10 years. People will feed you, walk you, pick up after you in America, and then you come back and go to heaven. No, this is not it. Part of their punishment is to come back as a dog. There are plenty of other parts that they have to pay for, but that's just for that particular sin, part of the punishment. It's like, for example, somebody committed, multiple crimes. Part of their sentence is to do community service or to, I don't know, do something in the prison or whatever it is. Part of their sentence, not the whole sentence. So point is that a person that comes back into this world as a person that is part of a Jewish family that is Torah observant, that certainly has a lot to do with how they lived their life in the previous carnation. And now, certainly they weren't perfect, or else they wouldn't have to come back, but their problem wasn't Torah observance as a whole, but rather it could be something else, like a bad character trait, like arrogance, anger, stinginess. They could be coming to this world just because they were too stingy in their previous life, and they have to fix it now. On the other hand, a person that comes back into this world and into a secular family, it's likely that in their previous life, they were living a secular life. They may have been born into a religious family in the previous life, but they abandoned it, and they lived a secular life. So their tikkun, their rectification, is to go from being secular to religious, and so on and so forth. In so many words, there's no one more righteous than God. There's no one more just than God. Everything with precision beyond any comprehension that any human being, and even all of the human beings combined, could ever understand. The depth of judgment is beyond human comprehension. So if you have a certain situation, whether it's growing up in a secular family, in a non-Jewish family, in a Jewish family that acts like a non-Jewish family, in a Jewish family that's very holy, in a Jewish family that is the enemy of holy, in a non-Jewish family that hates Jews, in a non-Jewish family that loves Jews. All of these different circumstances, and even the circumstance of your individual minute-to-minute life, where to the point where you have a little pin in your hand and you're trying to get something into a piece of paper, but instead of going into the piece of paper, it stings your finger or it stabs your finger. That, the Gemara in Masechet Chulin, page 7, says, even that little prick in your finger from the needle, from the pin, that has to go to the Bed Din, to the judgment of heaven, and get determined whether it will happen or not. Meaning, before that pin, that needle goes into your finger, there's a whole court in heaven deciding whether that will be or not. So, if something so minute is supervised by a Kadosh Baruch Hu, needless to say, which family, neighborhood, country, nation you will be born in is also closely monitored, and of course, it's something that is part of the divine hand that's beyond our comprehension. There is no such thing as a person living in this world without knowing that and having plenty of chances to learn about God. God does not bring a person to this world to simply suffer without knowing that there is a God. There are some people that are brought to this world to suffer, unique type of suffering, but that's not because of their lack of belief in God. It has nothing to do with it. It's something completely separate. Every single person lives in this world that matures will have opportunities to encounter a God, to know that there is a God, and choose whether to follow God or not, whether they're Jew or Gentile, young or old, in this country or any other country. Everyone gets an opportunity, and everyone chooses accordingly. And Jeremiah talks about idol worship under the tree. What? I think that in Jeremiah it talks about doing idol worship under the tree. Could that be what the people do for Xmas? Now putting the gifts under the tree. It's not necessarily the gifts, but the whole tree being a part of a worship is certainly against the Torah. I actually have a couple of clips from older lectures that discusses it and brings the different verses. You could look at the channel and just put a Xmas tree or something tree on my channel, and you'll see those clips. They're very short, 5-10 minute clips. Why was Yosef punished by going to prison? Well, it wasn't necessarily 100% punishment. It was simply the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world to bring salvation to it. But the journey of Yosef had to have some type of suffering in it because he misspoke against his brothers. Could even be considered Lashon Hara. When he said to Yaakov that they weren't eating kosher meat and they were flirting with women, both of which were not true. It's just that Yosef didn't realize the full picture. He saw that they were eating a calf without slaughtering it, so he thought that they're not eating kosher. But the reality is that this calf was inside the womb of a cow that they did slaughter. And the halacha is that if you slaughter a cow and in it is an unborn calf, you don't need to slaughter the calf. You could just, it's considered a part of the body of the cow. So it doesn't need to be slaughtered. Point being is that Yosef didn't see the whole picture. Same thing with the womanizing. They didn't realize that they were conducting business with different people that were in the market. They weren't flirting with anyone. So he misspoke against his brothers to his father Yaakov, and that was part of the suffering that he had to get. When we come back to life, when Mashiach comes, do all of the reincarnations come back or just me? BeEzrat HaShem, everyone that is righteous will come back. But since I just said, all of us have been here multiple times, that means that the one that comes back is the most righteous version of you. So if the current version of you is the most righteous, then this version will come, meaning this body will come. The soul is always the same, but which body, it will be the current one. If the previous one was more righteous, then that's the one that's going to come. But as far as the soul is the same soul. Can or will Hashem ever interfere with the technological world? As in, like he makes Shiurei Torah videos get millions and millions of views daily. Can Hashem? There is no such thing as a question of can Hashem. Hashem can do anything he wants. He is the one that, instills life into this world. There's nothing else but him. Nothing will operate without him. Nothing can function. Nothing can exist without him. If a person wants a little bit more of a scientific explanation of that, is simply look at what an atom is. An atom, energy, what everything is made up of. Atom has, in essence, three major parts, right? Three major parts, but anyone that looks through a very, very sophisticated microscope will see that the atom and its parts, they're not connected to each other like it is in the textbooks. Many times, they're actually very far apart from each other. And in fact, they're moving very, very fast. They're spinning very, very fast. And in fact, the atom, 99.999% of the atom is empty space. Meaning that those things that they mention, the proton, the neutron, the electron, those are small parts that are spinning very, very fast, that make it look like it's a single solid piece, but in fact, it's not. It's 99% empty space. This is similar to a fan. When you turn on a fan, it goes very fast and it looks like there's a single blade. But once you slow down the fan, you see that it's several blades. Could be 2, 4, 6 blades depending on the fan. Or let's say a engine of a airplane. When it's turned on, it doesn't look like these small pieces as it does when it slows down. Same concept. Because the atom moves very fast, it looks solid. Thereby, everything that you see looks and feels solid. But if the atom were to stop spinning, not even completely stop spinning, but simply would slow down spinning, then the emptiness, which is the vast majority of what an atom is, this nothingness of the atom, would be exposed, and that substance would simply disappear. In so many words, if the atoms stop spinning, not just in your phone or your computer or in ChatGPT and Amazon, If the atoms of the world stop spinning, the world disappears as if it never existed. The whole universe disappears as if it never existed. So the question you should be asking is, what's keeping them spinning? Or what's keeping them from stopping to spinning? And that's God. Because the atoms are not connected to any electric outlet. What's giving them the energy to keep spinning? That's God. That's one of the ways that you can see, in essence, God in creation itself, where you realize very quickly that the world cannot exist without God. And you cannot explain the existence of the world without God. Anyone that denies it is simply just a person that chooses to live a lie. But as far as if anyone would doubt it, you would simply have to provide a better explanation of what's keeping the atoms spinning. Nothing other than God. Okay. I'm in the process of conversion. Can one read Me'am Lo'ez in addition to the materials of conversion syllabus? They should first complete the syllabus and all the things that are in the syllabus, and then go to the Me'am Lo'ez. Don't jump to the Me'am Lo'ez now. First you have to do what you're obligated to do as a Jew, and then you do the things that you're not obligated. Okay. Let's see. רוצים עברית. בסדר, בעזרת השם נעשה שיעור בעברית, אולי יותר מאוחר, אולי מחר, בעזרת השם. הרב, אם יש לי חבר גוי שהוא לא עשה ברית מילה, רוצה לשמור שבת, מותר לו? לא, אסור לו. אסור לגוי לשמור שבת, הרמב"ם קורא לזה איסור חמור בשביל הגויים, זה נחשב שהם גונבים מצווה, והתורה אומרת זה גזר דין מוות, זאת אומרת שהוא יכול להביא על עצמו מיתה מידי שמיים בגלל שהוא שומר שבת שאסור לו לשמור שבת. See. Okay, last question. Well, since the sages explained the correspondence of mitzvot to the 613 parts of the human body, what is the correspondence to the 7 Noahide laws to the non-Jewish body? No, it doesn't necessarily have to have the correspondence to the body. So 7 Noahide laws are the laws that are common sense laws that HaKadosh Baruch Hu instilled in every human being that's in this world. And there is there 7 stands for nature. You know, you have the natural order of the world is represented by the number 7. Supernatural is 8. So the Noahides are, in essence, expected to act like a human being and use their common sense, which will tell you not to murder, not to steal, not to commit adultery. But the key is to do it because God said it, not necessarily just because you understand it. So when will the Torah videos get hundreds of millions of views instead of all of the other shtiyot? No, the key, if Hashem made the Torah, simply go into every single person automatically and be the only thing that people see automatically without them choosing to go to the Torah, then that would be disturbing their free will. And in essence, he would be forcing them into righteousness instead of them choosing righteousness. And if he's forcing them into righteousness, he's turning them into robots. Hashem doesn't want robots. Hashem wants you to choose the righteous path, not be forced into the righteous path. Is it true when a person does tshuva before they die that they go straight to Gan Eden, or if they were religious their whole life and did tshuva every day and go straight to Gan Eden with no judgment? Yes and no, it depends. If they do tshuva right before they die, they do not go straight to Gan Eden. They simply have a share in the world to come where their suffering will eventually end. But they will have to suffer for all of their sins. You don't go to heaven, to Gan Eden, just because you said I made mistakes. You have to fix those mistakes and you have to do mitzvot. Same concept with someone that's been in a religious family their whole life. Even if they were in a religious family their whole life, if they made mistakes, if they didn't do tshuva for them in this world, then they'll have to pay for them in the next world. If they did tshuva every day, then yes, they can go straight to heaven without having any judgment. It depends on a person. A righteous person that is doing tshuva on a regular basis can go to heaven without going to judgment. But if a person is just thinks that they're going to use the last minute before they die to do tshuva and then go to the same place that a person that did tshuva every day is going to, that's simply manipulation of logic and manipulation of the Torah. No, there's no such thing. Nobody goes to heaven, for nothing. You have to earn it. Okay, thank you very much for learning with me. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless each and every single one of you. Have Chanukah Sameach. Oh, and actually, last thing, I'll teach you guys. It's very, very important, and only because it's time sensitive, we're going to use the time now to teach it. Okay, generally speaking, the Gemara in Masechet Brachot teaches that you're not allowed to pray for miracles. Meaning, you can't ask Hashem, make me 10 inch taller. Hashem, make me, completely change my body and I look like somebody else. Hashem, give me $100 billion in 2 minutes from now. No such thing. You can't pray for stuff like that. That is disrespecting the prayer, disrespecting the king. It's not a good thing to do. But praying to Hashem, you're always allowed to pray, and we have to pray every single day. There's a commandment from the Torah that every Jew has to pray each and every single day. At least once is a Torah obligation, and the sages instituted 3 prayers per day instead of only once. Either way, prayer for miracles is not something that is taught because we're taught you're not supposed to do it because you should be more realistic. Ask Hashem to help you, but not make miracles for you. Except today and tomorrow. Why? The Rama in the Shulchan Aruch brings a proof from the Torah obligation of Birkat HaMazon, of the blessings from a Torah, which is Birkat HaMazon, which is the only blessing that actually has a verse from a Torah for it, that if someone were to miss saying the additional blessing of Chanukah during Birkat HaMazon, but they didn't finish the blessing, they would simply say a verse that says, bless Hashem for making us miracles. And from there, the Rama brings a proof that during Chanukah, specifically right now, these next 24, 48 hours, okay, is a time where you are allowed to pray for a miracle. You're allowed to pray for a miracle. Why? Because this is an auspicious time throughout all of history that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us miracles, and praying for a miracle is something you can do at this time. So think about what you really need in life, not for making sins. Think about it, pray about it, and Be'ezrat Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will fulfill it. Kol tuv, bracha v'atzlacha, and BeEzrat HaShem will learn again next week. אפשר לקבל ברכה. כן, ידידי היקר, איזה מצווה אתה לוקח על עצמך, או את לוקחת על עצמך, זה שבת, טהרת משפחה, לימוד תורה, איזה משהו שייתן לברכה כוח. רק לתת לכם ברכה בעצמה לא יהיה כל כך מועיל. צריך שזה לקחת על עצמנו איזה מצווה, איזה משהו. מה אתם לוקחים על עצמכם? איזה מצווה? אוקיי, אני צריך לזוז, אז היינו כבר באונליין כבר שעתיים, אז אגיד לכם בפשטות, בזכות המצווה שאתם לוקחים על עצמכם, איזה מצווה שאתם לוקחים על עצמכם, שהיא אחד מעיקרי התורה, הקדוש ברוך הוא יברך אתכם בברכה, בהצלחה, בשפע, רוחני וגשמי, חיים ארוכים, שלמים, מלאים תורה, מצוות וגמילות חסדים. כל טוב, ברכה והצלחה.